I scammed my husband into liking me, and I admitted it on our wedding day. When I stood there, looking at him across the aisle, my hands shaking just a little as I held my vows, I couldn't help but laugh. I was about to confess, in front of everyone we loved, just how ridiculous I'd been when I first tried to get his attention. There we were, the girl who had once been hopelessly obsessed with her best friend's older brother, and the guy who had no idea she existed beyond the sound of her giggles echoing down the hallway. I started my vows with the truth. It was love at first sight, at least for me. I still remember the first time I saw him. I was 12, maybe 13, and I had come over to hang out with his little sister. I had braces, terrible bangs, and the kind of awkward energy that can only come from being a tween trying way too hard to look cool. He, on the other hand, was tall, confident, with this lazy grin that made my stomach do flips. He had that older brother vibe, mysterious, completely uninterested in what anyone thought, and absolutely off limits. He would walk past us in the hallway, sometimes shirtless after basketball practice, and I swear my heart would stop. His sister would roll her eyes and tell me to stop being weird. But I couldn't help it, he was him. To me, he was perfect. To him, I was just that friend who never stops giggling. At sleepovers, I'd try to act cool when he passed by, asking his sister casual things like, "Does your brother have a girlfriend?" Or, "Do you think he likes smart girls?" She always knew what I was up to. I'm pretty sure the entire family did. But I didn't care. Every glimpse of him felt like something out of a movie. I wrote his name in the margins of my school notebooks and made up fake scenarios in my head where he finally noticed me and fell madly in love. Years went by. Life happened. We lost touch after high school, and I assumed that my little crush would fade with time, the way most teenage daydreams eventually do. But life has a funny way of circling back when you least expect it. One night, years later, a friend invited me to a birthday party. I didn't know everyone who was going, but when I got there and saw him, older, scruffier, still with that same easy smile, I swear time stopped. I think I even forgot to breathe for a second. He looked at me, really looked at me this time, and smiled like he recognized me too. The butterflies came back instantly, like they'd just been waiting for permission. We talked a little that night. It was casual, just drinks, laughter, and old stories. But there was something there, something small but electric. A current. A click. When the night was ending and he mentioned he didn't have a ride home, I blurted out, maybe a bit too quickly, "You can crash at my place if you want." And that was it, my moment. My second chance. The thing is, I wasn't leaving it up to chance this time. Oh no, I had a plan. Before he came over, I went into full, romantic mastermind mode. I might have gone a tiny bit overboard. I set the scene perfectly, cozy lighting, music low, candles that made it look like I didn't just sprint around cleaning my apartment 30 minutes ago. And then came the props. I casually left a t-shirt from his favorite football team draped over the back of a chair. Total coincidence, right? Except that shirt belonged to my dad, and I hadn't worn it once in my life. Then I placed a CD of his favorite band on my nightstand, because, you know, every casual fan keeps it right next to their bed. And finally, the masterpiece, his favorite beer chilling in the fridge. Never mind that I thought it tasted like expired metal water, I was fully prepared to fake my way through it. When he came in, I tried to act cool. Like, "Oh hey, yeah, I totally listened to that band too. You didn't know? Wild." He smiled, that smile, and said, "No way, you're a fan too." My heart nearly exploded. We stayed up that night just talking. It started with music, then memories, then the kind of late-night conversation where everything feels honest and soft. There was no awkwardness, no distance, just two people who suddenly saw each other clearly. It was the kind of night you don't realize is changing your life until it's already over. He noticed the little details later, the shirt, the CD, even the beer. He teased me endlessly about it, calling me a secret strategist. I pretended to be embarrassed, but inside, I was proud. My plan had worked. All those years of silently crushing, of observing from the sidelines, had finally paid off. But now, he wasn't just someone I admired from afar, he was mine, and I was his. From that night on, we were inseparable. It started slow, coffee dates, long walks, inside jokes that turned into shared memories. He told me later that he'd always thought I was sweet back then, but never realized how much I'd grown up until that night. "You kind of snuck up on me," he said once, brushing my hair behind my ear. "One minute, you were just my sister's giggly friend, and the next, you were you." Years later, when he proposed, his sister was the first to call me the long game queen. She thought it was hilarious when she found out I'd basically used our teenage hangouts to study her brother's interests. I told her it was all for research purposes, purely academic, of course. And so, when I stood there on our wedding day, I told everyone the truth. I told them how I'd fallen for him when I was still wearing braces, how I'd spent years secretly hoping he'd notice me, and how, when I finally got the chance, I went all in. Some people might think it's weird, or even silly, but to me, it's the best story I could ever tell. It's the story of how I fell for a boy I thought was way out of my league and somehow, through a mix of timing, luck, and just a touch of chaos, ended up marrying him. So yes, I admitted everything in my vows. The t-shirt. The CD. The beer I still can't stand. I told him that I would do it all over again, exactly the same way, because every tiny, embarrassing moment led me to him. And as I looked into his eyes, smiling at me the way he did that night years ago, I realized something simple but true. Sometimes love doesn't start with fireworks or perfect timing. Sometimes, it starts with a crush, a plan, and a fridge full of beer you don't even like. And sometimes, if you're lucky enough, it ends with a vow, a kiss, and the kind of love that makes every awkward, giggly, slightly ridiculous moment completely worth it.